Imagine waking up one day to find your whole financial world turned upside down. Everything you'd planned for your future suddenly put to the test. That's exactly what has happened to a 51-year-old who's now medically retired, sitting on a nest egg of $428,000 in stocks and facing the big question, is that enough to live on? Let's break this down together. At 51, most people are in the thick of their careers, still growing their retirement savings, not drawing on them. But a medical retirement changes the game completely. Suddenly, the clock starts ticking earlier than expected. The big concern? Whether that $428,000 will go the distance, possibly 3 decades or more. First, let's talk about what it means to be medically retired. This isn't the same as choosing to leave work early because you want more free time. It usually means a health condition forced you out of the workforce, so there's little to no chance of returning to a full-time job or earning a similar income again. For our retiree, this means he has to make his existing savings last, possibly longer than someone who retires at 65. Now, $428,000 is a respectable sum. In fact, according to the Federal Reserve's latest survey of consumer finances, the median retirement account balance for people aged 55 to 64 is just about $185,000. So, in pure numbers, this retiree is ahead of the curve. But let's be honest, that doesn't necessarily mean it's enough. Why? Because retirement isn't just about how much you have. It's also about how long you need it to last, how much you'll spend, and a dozen other variables. Most financial planners use a rule of thumb called the 4% rule. It says you can withdraw about 4% of your retirement savings each year, and there's a decent chance your money will last 30 years. For $428,000, that's just over $17,000 a year before taxes. Now think about your annual expenses. Can you get by on $17,000 a year? For many people, that's a tight budget, especially if you have medical costs, a mortgage, or debts. And this doesn't even account for inflation, which steadily chips away at your purchasing power over time. That's where the choice of where to live comes in. The retiree is considering states like South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, or Texas. Why those states? Simple. They're all known for their relatively low cost of living. Housing is more affordable, property taxes are generally lower, and in states like Texas and Florida, there's no state income tax. That means every dollar he withdraws stretches a little further. Let's put some numbers to it. According to the Bureau of Economic Analysis, the cost of living in Mississippi is the lowest in the nation, followed closely by Arkansas and Oklahoma. Alabama and Georgia also rank near the bottom, so if you're trying to make $17,000 a year work, these are smart places to look. But even in these states, healthcare costs can be unpredictable, and for someone medically retired, that's a big deal. Healthcare is one of the biggest wildcards in early retirement. If you're not yet 65, you're not eligible for Medicare. That means shopping for health insurance on the open market, and premiums can easily run thousands of dollars a year, especially if you have pre-existing conditions. Some states have expanded Medicaid access, but eligibility rules vary, and not everyone qualifies. So even if you find a place with cheap housing, healthcare can eat up a big chunk of your budget. Next, let's talk about the portfolio itself. The article says the entire nest egg is in stocks. That's a classic growth strategy when you're younger. But as you transition into retirement, most experts recommend dialing back your risk. Why? Because if the market takes a big hit early in your retirement, your nest egg could shrink faster than you can adjust your spending, and you have less time to recover. This is called sequence of returns risk, and it's one of the biggest threats to early retirees. One option is to gradually shift some money into bonds or even cash, building a safety net that can cover a few years' worth of expenses regardless of what the stock market does. That way, if stocks dip, you aren't forced to sell at a loss just to pay the bills. Another approach is to set up a bucket strategy, keeping short-term cash for immediate needs, bonds for medium-term stability, and stocks for long-term growth. But even with a careful strategy, $428,000 is not a magic bullet. There are so many variables. Will Social Security be available in a decade? Will you face unexpected medical bills? How will inflation behave? The Social Security question is especially important. If our retiree can hold off until at least age 62, he could start collecting benefits, which would supplement his withdrawals. The average monthly Social Security benefit in 2024 is about $1,900, but it could be higher or lower based on your work history. For many retirees, Social Security becomes a critical pillar of financial security. So, what does this all add up to? For someone medically retired at 51 with $428,000 in stocks, the answer is, it's possible to make it work, but it's going to require careful planning, disciplined spending, and a willingness to adapt. Choosing a low-cost state to live in helps, but healthcare inflation and market risk can throw curveballs. There's no one-size-fits-all answer. If you're in a similar situation, start by breaking down your expected expenses: housing, food, insurance, and those curveballs like healthcare. Consider working with a fee-only financial planner who specializes in retirement transitions. And don't be afraid to revisit your plan as your health, investment returns, or living situation changes. Ultimately, retirement isn't just about chasing a number. It's about balancing risk, security, and quality of life. And for those facing an unexpected early retirement, the question isn't just, do I have enough? But how can I make the most of what I have? That's a challenge, but also an opportunity to rethink what retirement means and to design a life that fits your new reality. The financial world might feel upside down right now, but with some strategy and adaptability, it's possible to land on your feet. And as we look ahead, remember, the real measure of retirement security isn't just a number in your brokerage account, but the freedom and peace of mind you build along the way.